Clinton Miner here from Sawtooth Bushcraft. The weather just keeps getting a little tougher and tougher on me here. Gives me an opportunity to show something else that we've got in our inventory, and that is this Rainfly. I'm going to go ahead and take it out of the package right now, show it to you, and then I will go ahead and set it up and show you some different configurations that can be used when you're using something like this out on a day like today, when you're out looking for deer, which is what I'm doing today. Not doing a lot of looking, I'm doing a few videos, but up here in the mountains, hoping to find a deer. You hit this kind of weather, the deer aren't going to be moving in this kind of weather. Better just to hunker down, and the way to do that is with a good Rainfly. So I've got the actual fly itself. You'll see it once it's set up. Also in the package, there are two cold fingers, two aluminum stakes, and some cord that I can use to stretch that out. I'll show you one other item, or one other thing that is particularly good about this particular product, and that is not only is it a Rainfly, but the inside of it has a reflective material that acts to some extent like an emergency blanket. So I can put this around me, it will reflect back a lot of the heat from my body. I can also, in one of the configurations I'm about to set up for you, I can use it as a reflective back while also using it to keep the weather off from me. Build a fire out in front of that, and that radiating heat from the fire will reflect off this surface and maintain my warmth in that shelter. So I'm going to go ahead and set up a couple of different setups. One of those is going to be just a basic lean-to using some paracord and pressic knots. The other one I'm going to use is going to be using a trekking pole, and we'll get those set up. A couple of things that I carry often in my backpack most of the time. One of those I almost always have in my day pack is a kneeling pad. I'm an old man and it's hard to get up and down off the ground. That gives me a way that I can set up my tent without getting all wet. Another thing I carry that I've had for about 25 years, it's I think it's Swiss or some Scandinavian country. It's their sleeping pad, and it isn't much of a sleeping pad. It doesn't really pad you at all, but what it does is provide you with a waterproof barrier between you and the ground, with a little bit of insulation as well. So you see that I've set this up as a lean-to. I've got just a paracord between two trees. I've created some pressic knots, and we'll talk about how to do those in another video. Used a little toggle, and they're really nice sturdy tie-outs at the corners of this, so I can stretch that. I've made myself a little bit of a lean-to. I can now put my pad down underneath that, and I have a place to sit or to lay down out of the weather. I could build a fire here in front of the shelter, a couple steps away from it. Maybe even put a little bit of a barrier behind that to reflect some of that light or that heat. Get that in there, and that area would then become a protected area in this snowy, nasty weather. So that's one of the setups that we can do with this absolutely wonderful Rainfly. This would be just a temporary, during the day kind of shelter. If I wanted to, I could build up some brush on the ends of that and create a much more appropriate night shelter, again with a fire that I keep going during the night. And that's the lean-to shelter that I talked about. Another more protective and secure, holding some body heat in and keeping the wind off from you, if you can figure out where the prevailing wind is coming, as well as the rain and the snow, is what's called a diamond formation. I've attached one corner to a tree. I've staked the other three corners out, and now I've got a nice large area that I can get inside that. I've got enough room for my gear, keep it out of the weather, and Again, I could build up brush on one or the other sides of these, of this opening, and block off more wind. I could also put a fire again outside, although it would not reflect quite as well, but this is just a good alternative if you don't have a tent and you're caught out in the woods. Very simple to do. You only need one tree or one pole. You could actually put a pole, just a piece of branch right here, tie it to this tie down, and then string your paracord out from there, or a trekking pole. And we'll be doing a trekking pole shelter with this in just a minute, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Trekking pole can be used in a number of ways with these Rainflies, and it is completely waterproof, keeping all of this wet snow off, beating it off really well. Just an excellent way to have a Rainfly in your arsenal. I'm going to go ahead and pull the camera around behind and show you what this looks like from the other side. So there you have the back side of that diamond shelter setup. You can see that provides a lot of room, and you could block off along the bottom of that so that there's no wind coming in. Keep that snow and rain off from you. But just an excellent shelter. Easily get 2 people underneath that, and be able to weather a storm. If you didn't have that pad that I had, you could break off some of these pine boughs and create some distance between, or some insulation between you and that wet, cold ground. So the next setup we've got here is really exactly what I just had. That's the diamond. But what I'm showing you with this is that if you've got a trekking pole, or really you could use just a stick, and even in a pinch you could use your rifle, obviously take the shells out of it, and you could prop it up. I don't have that trekking pole tied. The tension of the pole is holding it there. So now I've got that same kind of a shelter. I can get in, get out of the weather. I can block off one of those sides so that I've got really a 4-sided setup, and I have shelter from a storm with absolutely minimal amount of weight and space in my pack. I'm going to show you one more way to use a trekking pole, and this one is kind of nice because you don't have to have even the paracord that I've used to tie this out, and we'll go ahead and get that set up. So here we have the last setup with this Rainfly. You can see that this isn't terribly roomy, but there's still room if you had to get 2 people underneath that, get them in out of the weather. Very compact, so it's going to hold in your body heat. It is very easy to set up. I've simply put the trekking pole at the front, stretch it out, and put pegs in all 4 corners. And I have a fairly large area that I can get in there and get out of the weather. This shows you something that you can do in weather like this when you get caught in a storm. Another way to use the Rainfly is implied in its name, and that is we go ahead and fly it. That's a term that's kind of fallen out of use, but what that really means is when we stake a tarp down, it's staked when we hang it like this, where there are no stakes in the ground and it's all spread out openly above ground, then that's flying a tarp, and that's why these are called Rainflies. And what I've done is just set it up so that I've got an area under which I can sit. You can hear that the rain is still falling on it and the trees are dripping on it. Just makes a nice area that I can get out of the weather. So, as we say here at Sawtooth Bushcraft, if you're prepared, you're never really lost. Thanks.